Hello, sisters. We got through the book. I'm just gonna like ramble while I wait for you guys to hop over from the other stream. Yeah, Strawberry, you were the first one to smash the like button. This book was freaking great, man. Gay Chapman has a copy of Eden Built by Eves, which she mentions briefly, I think in chapter 2, where she basically was like, that was my first book of trying to be like a historian covering women's music festivals. Eden Built by Eves is like the women who built music festivals and how that like came about. I think it was published a lot earlier. I do eventually want to read it, but I'm gonna like give it some time because I mean obviously it's like a similar topic to this. When she does mention it in this book, she mentions it to be like that was quite an imperfect book that I wrote. But like I think this also wasn't perfect. I mean, pretty damn good, obviously. I mean, she's like a professor who's been teaching for a super long time. But well, super long time. You know what I mean? She's not like she's been around academics a while. She knows how to write, is my point. But yeah, obviously it's like her perspective. Turf Mail says she learned so much. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so Eden Built by Eves is published in 1999. So this book is like 15 years later, and this was published the last year of Mishfest. So it's crazy. Like her first book in 1999 was like how so many women like built and established these festivals, and her this book is basically how the festivals died. Just like crazy. We definitely gonna read that book eventually. Um, oh, I'm sorry, Lavender. Uh, if you ever see me like end a live stream and you know that I'm starting a new one, just go to my main like YouTube channel page and refresh it, and it should pop up as like live streaming whatever I'm doing right now. Um, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought that the link would work in the live chat from the last thing, but anyway, we are definitely going to eventually read Eden Built by Eves. I actually okay, women that I know are like alive and accessible. Jamie Anderson, Bonnie J. Morris, Nidra Johnson. Like, there are a lot of women mentioned in this book that I'm pretty sure I could like email them and be like, "Do you want to be interviewed on my channel?" I think it would be. Although some of them I'm like, should I read your biography first? Like Jamie Anderson, 2 books. I don't know if Nidra Johnson has a book. Like, should we read their books first? Channel, I don't know. Um, Rose, you're like a bit older, right? Are you done with camping? Are you gonna go to BMG? I'm planning to go to it, so if you are, let's meet up. I don't know where you are either. Like, maybe when you were younger, it was worth the travel time to get to Michigan, but maybe now it's not. um, yeah. Okay. So, thoughts on the book. So, my friend who recommended this book to me and was like, "You need to buy it." She offered to lend me her copy, but then when I was at you're in Detroit, but you can stay in a hotel that's like 5 minutes away. I'll meet with you in Detroit. Let's go for coffee this summer. I'll come to see you. Um, no, she is a songwriter, but a bunch of the women, like I didn't know. I would say about 30 to 40% of the names that she mentioned in this book I've heard before. Could I tell you any of their songs? No, but I've heard the names before. Um, and then like a bunch of them, I think it was in chapter 3, a bunch of them she lists like the books they've written or the documentaries they've been interviewed in or whatever. So there is apparently like a body of work. I mean, I kind of want to. I've been thinking about this. First of all, I need to make my own website, which I've been saying for like, when did I get banned from Twitter? I've been saying for like 3 or 4 years. Wait, the year before I started dating my ex. So 4 years I've been saying I need to make my own website. Maybe I finally will. But I kind of want to um make like a blog post that's like all of the stuff she referenced in here, because like it's in like in the back, right? Like she mentioned a bunch of um She mentioned a bunch of books that were by women who had, been integral to these festivals. She mentioned a bunch of um interviews for like magazines and newspapers that I'm sure I could like find the actual articles and like link them all in a blog post. Um I just feel like a lot of the stuff that she talked about, it could be very accessible if it was all compiled into one place. So, like, how much work would it be? Like, I could spend a few hours and compile all this stuff, um, or a bunch of it anyway. Uh, yeah, and I think I'm gonna email her because okay, I posted on Twitter asking women if any of them had Dyke. Do you know enough? The trivia game with 500 cards and 3,000 questions. Two women from New Zealand were like, I have that, and sent me pictures or posted pictures on Twitter. And I was like, cool. Can you mail it to me? And I will make like a digitized version that women can print at home. Obviously, I need to contact. I know that Julia Penelope has passed. I don't know. Flowing Margaret Johnson, I don't know how to contact her. Like, she's really hard to find online. Same with Sarah Valentine, but like I know women. I think Max Dashu is friends with both of them, and like she's easy to like find. And like obviously Bonnie J. Morris at the end, she was like women who like were integral to my journey. Sarah Valentine, one of the creators of Dyke. So I'm like I could probably through like 1 or 2 degrees of separation find whoever is around who created that game, and be like, do I have your permission to make like a free printable accessible version of this for the young women? Because like even if a lot of the information seems kind of like disconnected to the younger generation, like I don't know. No, they're not singers. They're like historians and academics, like they're writers. Um anyway, like I know them. I knew the names from before because I have like in these copies of Lesbian Ethics, like I don't know which I've seen both of their names. I mean Julia Penelope, I've seen all three of their names. Oh my god, Marilyn Fry is in this one. Anyway, I've seen all three of their names. I have like 6 volumes of this. Oh, like Nedra Johnson. Yeah. Anyway, so what am I taking away from this book? I want to make a digitized version of Dyke. I want to make every time I go to a women's festival now, I'm gonna bring a there's 2 things I want to do. One thing I want to do is bring waterproof body paint because all the women's festivals, well, I've only been to 2. The women's festivals I've been to, most of the women by the last day are not wearing shirts. Like the moment I get there, like rip my clothes off. But like last year, some women tried to write like their emails or like their Twitter handles or whatever, like on their backs so that you can like find each other when you leave. So I want to bring like waterproof body paint so we can like paint each other and also like write stuff on our bodies to like communicate. I'm also gonna bring notebooks. I don't know how because it's always freaking raining in Michigan. How exactly I'm gonna do that, but I kind of want to leave it like by my tent with like a big sign, being like, "Please write in this notebook." Um, because I'm like that would be an easy thing for us to do right now. And then I'll be like, if you want me to publish this publicly, like anonymously or not, put like a star beside your whatever, you know? Um, I also think next time I go to these like festivals in Michigan, I'm gonna try to make a list of women, whether they're like new to the festival or they've been coming to like women's festivals for like, 30 years to be interviewed on my channel. We have those 2 days in July when it's sunny. Yeah. Um, I expect to be in Michigan for like 3 weeks this summer, so hopefully some of them are not raining. Um, yeah, so something else I was going to say that I'm taking away from this book. Oh, right. Also, okay, so she talked about that like TV show and how she sent a letter and like $10 to the producer or writer or whatever of that TV show. And how the woman wrote her back and was like, nobody has contacted me to like or given me money to be like thank you and support me. And she was just like appreciative, that TV show producer. And when you think about it, like a TV show producer is somebody that you think is like in a lot of power and is like hard to access and is like power, like, whatever. And like when I think about like a published book like by SUNY Press and it says gay lesbian studies, like clearly this book, that's something else I have like another comment about this book. Clearly this book was designed to be able to use in like the academy. Like this was the kind of book that you, if you're teaching like a gay and lesbian history 101, you could like put this on the syllabus. She wrote it with that intention, obviously. Anyway, when you consider that this woman is like a professor and a lecturer and a historian and a published author of like many, many books, she seems kind of inaccessible and like some kind of larger than life, powerful, like whatever. After reading this book, I'm like, I should email all the women whose books I've read that are still like around and just be like, thanks for the book. Like Lillian Faderman, she's like, yeah, my friend Lillian Faderman. Like I've read Lillian Faderman books. I never really considered being like, thanks, sister, for that, because they feel like these large and accessible, powerful women, but like they're just people. So I should email them. Yeah. Okay. I think those are like my general takeaways from the book. Yeah. I did have an idea last year when I went, because I do have a setup for protests that I've only used once, of like a kind of like selfie stick tripod thing and like a microphone I can plug into my phone so I can like record or live stream like with my phone, like out and about in public. I did kind of think about bringing it, but then I was like, how am I going to find like an isolated corner of the festival to interview the one woman who agrees to be interviewed? And then obviously when you get there, it's like you're not really thinking about that. You're just enjoying being there. Anyway, or resting from like too much socialization. So I don't think that's like, you know, I think that's a good idea. But I do think like if I'm gonna be in town before and after the festivals, like for example, if somebody is like, yeah, I live in Lansing, do you want to have coffee? I can be like, let's have coffee in a park and I'll record like 5 minutes of you talking about like what women's festivals mean to you or something. Like I'm not trying to like get views on my channel, obviously, as you can tell from the content I put on my channel. But I do think it would be like she talks in this book kind of like how like it's our legacy and we need to like put work into it. So I'm not an academic and I don't really have the time to do what these other women have done. I mean, I guess I could, because she does talk about women like basically I think it's Max Dashu that she's like, yeah, I went like none of the lights were on, there was no heat, because she's like, I need to save money because I spent all my time doing this and don't have like enough income. Anyway, but I'm trying to think like what I can realistically do in the near future to kind of like protect our legacy or share our legacy or whatever. So I was thinking about that like throughout the book. Um yeah, Lavender says this book covered the basics, but it was kind of milquetoast. It didn't cover the really really beautiful things or the really really ugly things, just the superficial stuff in the middle. I kind of agree. I do think there was definitely some beautiful moments described in the book. But okay, so two things. One, she obviously was writing this as an academic to be accessible to the layman, but also useful to an academic, which is a pretty like special line to walk, right? So I think that kind of makes her this what you described. Another thing is that like obviously she's Jewish, right? So she's writing from the perspective of like I went to these events and like here's all the Jewish women I saw. I went to these events and this is like how my Jewish heritage like interacted with the other Jewish women there, like whatever, you know? So like that she comes up with that a lot. And I keep thinking in terms of like my minority status is like a Canadian, like in terms of women's festivals that are in the US, because they're all in the US, obviously. Um, and I'm like, if I wrote this book, I bet you I'd be listing like, did you know who was Canadian? These 6 women at this one festival. You know what I mean? Like I would definitely do that. So I'm like, you know, it was limiting. Yeah. Anung is like, no one's ever written about Mishfest from the perspective of women who spend most of their time in the women of color tent. Exactly. So like I would love to interview like there's the last time I went to like a women's event, there was like the women of color tent and there was also just like a bunch of black women who were like, yo, we're camping over here, come hang out with us, to the other women of color who were hanging out. And they seem to have been around for a while. And I kind of want to just go up to them and be like, "Yo, I've been researching like the history of this festival. Everything I've found is from like the perspective of white women. Can I interview one or two of you about like your experience? It doesn't need to be like super thorough. I'm not trying to make like an academic study. I just want to be like, what was your experience of stuff, you know?" That's so interesting. Anung says Mishfest used to be up to 50% Canadian with lots of French speakers. The more popular it got, the more white women and American it got. Yeah, when I was there, so I went with two other Canadians. Um, and then I met one other Canadian woman, and she was from like really close to Michigan. Like she was from just the other side of the border. Like I was the Canadian who traveled the farthest. Um, like Jamie Anderson traveled pretty far too, because she lives in Canada. She lives close to Montreal now. Um, yeah. Anyway, you love listening to French. I'm technically French Canadian, but like I didn't grow up with French. Okay, French was my first reading and writing language, but not my first spoken language. Anyway, um, okay, so I'm gonna go into like a little bit more specific stuff about the book. I think my takeaways from the book are like pretty great. I'm very happy. This is one of my favorite books I think I've read. Because why do I like this book? First of all, it gave me so much historical context, which I really appreciated, obviously. Um, but also this book was great because it like engaged you guys, like Anung and Lavender, giving your perspective as like women of color, like bouncing stuff off of what the book has to say. That was like as informative as the book itself. So that was like fucking amazing. I liked that a lot. Um oh, I mean she's like over there licking herself. I don't want to pick her up. Anung says the book was great for inspiring my memories. Yeah. I did think it was limiting, but I think she kind of acknowledges that. She's like, this is my first person perspective because I was there, right? And like this is like what I have from like written down like memos from like uh worker meetings and whatever. Like she's kind of like, this is what I have, and this is what I saw. It's not like the complete everything of what happened there, right? So, um, like Anung, you too, not to pressure you guys, but like I'll come see you if you want to interview you for like a few minutes because I feel like you have a lot of interesting stuff to say about the fest. Maybe I could do like a series of videos on my channel that are like women who've been to Mishfest. Anung says it also lacks the perspective of a worker. Yeah, which is weird because she said she was a worker. She wasn't really specific about it because I think she was trying to kind of be like, this is like what the fest was, not she was trying not to make it too personal, which I appreciate was probably really difficult for her. But when she mentions Mishfest specifically, at least from my understanding of it, it was like it was in the Air Roof chapter when she talks about finally being allowed to like run a Jewish table in the community center and then later to run the Jewish tent. She's like, that's when I became a worker. So maybe it was like a really specific way that she worked at it, you know? Oh, okay. Well, I mean, we could also do like a written interview or like a voice interview, whatever you want, and or we can just hang out and have coffee and not be interviewed, whatever. Okay. So, um, it's so funny. Every time she mentioned, yeah, Anung, if you could just talk about that, that would be so interesting to me. Anung says the workers tried to unionize. I've never heard of that before. From the women I've talked to who went or who took part. So if you could just tell me a bit about that sometime, that'd be cool. Okay, so she mentions Canadians like a few times, but she also mentions in the acknowledgements. She says, I owe immeasurable thanks to Lise Weil and the writers at Trivia, which is what she mentioned was like that Canadian magazine who had 2 issues dedicated to lesbian history or something like that. She mentioned, I think, in the beginning of chapter 5. She also mentioned some kind of lesbian conference in Toronto, which I think is when Loot was active, which is a lesbian organization of Toronto. They were only active from like 1986 to 1992 or something like that. I don't know. You can look at the Loot page, LOOT, on Wikipedia. There is an academic book written about them by somebody from the University of Toronto, but because it's like an academic book, it's like $100, and it's probably not super like, accessible, but I would love to read it because it's really hard to find like Canadian lesbian history. She also mentions women traveling from Winnipeg. Like when I used to live in Manitoba, okay, at one point the population of Winnipeg was like 400,000 people and it had like 4 dyke bars. Like apparently a lot of lesbians went to be farmers in Manitoba and then they created like a huge like lesbian subculture in Winnipeg, which is like super freaking cool. Apparently there's at least one documentary about it, but I forgot what the name was. There was a time when I lived there that I looked really hard for it because I thought one of the universities, which there's like 3 of them in Manitoba, might have like an archived copy of this documentary, but I couldn't find it. Anyway, I would be interested to do like, I mean, again, I'm not an academic and also I'm very bad at math, but I would be interested to do like an analysis of like the cost of the tickets year to year and like adjusted for inflation. Right now I'm buying tickets for the festivals I want to go to. Then I have like a few months. I have like 5 months or whatever to like recuperate my finances and like plan to actually spend money on gas and food and stuff. So we'll see. But that's like my big financial expenditure of like the year, and I assume I'll be doing the same thing next year. I really wanted to travel to this like one radical feminist conference in the UK in the fall, but I was like, I can't do this and that, like I can't afford it. So anyway, okay, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty with this book. I have like one final thought about this book. I really like the like Fiddler on the Roof comparison. However, one major limitation of that comparison was she talks about, so in Fiddler on the Roof, she's like, there's these 3 daughters who grew up in the Jewish culture, in the Jewish practice, and they reject it and go off to do their own thing. Then she is like, here we have the younger generation looking at like the old Birkenstock wearing, tofu eating lesbians and being like, you are the oldies, the traditionalists, I'm rejecting you and going off to do my own thing. The difference is in Fiddler on the Roof, the like old country traditionalist is not a boogeyman or an idea created by someone over there that you've never actually talked to one of them. You don't know any of their history or any of the experiences. They're like, honestly, in today's queer assimilationist LGBT bullshit, the like caricature that she described is not something that any of us grew up with or any of us interacted with or any of us had a knowledge of to reject in the first place. Like when I thought I was being like a trans man and like all that shit, I had like no connection whatsoever. I had never interacted with another lesbian. Like I didn't have lesbian culture and then look at it and reject it intentionally, knowingly, right? And I would say like, which it kind of, I understand why she makes that analogy at the end because she's trying to like be hopeful and tie it all together and whatever, which is like fine. And I think that concept can very easily apply to lesbians of like the early 90s, for example, right? But she even mentions like throughout the book, I think there's at least 3 times where she mentions like, I asked my students this question and this was their answer, or like I gave my students their project, this project, and this was like what they came up with. And or she's like, I went to this like this lesbian music rock or this women's rock band lecture or something, and nobody mentioned any of this. And I'm like, so you're acknowledging throughout the book that the young queer women of today are completely um disconnected from this. So how can you say that they're intentionally rejecting this thing that they know for like a more modern version when you're saying that they don't know what it is in the first place? Anyway, that was like my kind of biggest issue with like the last chapter. Also, like, it was a comment that Lavender made that really got me thinking. So when she was talking about the Eruv and stuff, that whole chapter, she basically talks about balancing the women who are completely rejecting Judaism, but like recognize their shared culture or ethnicity with the other Jewish women, versus the women who are like Orthodox, who are coming to the fest and need to like be able to practice their religion while they're there, and like balancing the two groups within one like Jewish community at the fest, right? And then she's like, yeah, the other women were basically like, this is too much religion, like it's all patriarchal, blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah, I totally agree with that. But then Lavender made this comment about this gospel thing, which basically was like, as what I understood from you, and this isn't like paraphrasing, not word for word. Lavender, you were talking about how it was like a bunch of black women to coming together to like heal from like Baptist stuff, and also to like share in their like community ritual of like the kind of Baptist church experience, right? Like in a positive way for themselves. Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, I'm glad I got it right. So then you said that, and it kind of like recontextualized what it was that I was reading. Okay. And I was like, yeah, okay, good for them. I'm like actually like genuinely anti religion. Like, not anti spirituality, but like most all organized religion seems like a bad deal for women. But that said, obviously, women are going to do what they want to do. So making it like women's fest should be accessible to all women, because at the end of the day, the reason you're there is because you're a woman. It's not because of your sexuality or your race or your religion or your economic class. It's because you're a woman that you belong there, right? So it should be accessible to all of them. She tried to do that. So that's cool. I hope I expressed myself well and didn't come off as like an asshole, but whatever. I said what I said. Okay, so yeah, this book was great. I loved this book. I definitely think we're going to try to read some more books by her. Let's see. So we have Eden Built by Eves. I'll drop the this is the link to the Goodreads of that book if you're interested, from 1999. I can't believe it only has 40 ratings. Like, I also wonder what these women would think if I was like, yeah, I read your book on my YouTube channel. Like, is that like a copyright issue? Would they be like, please take it down? Whatever. Revenge of the Women's Studies Professor. What is this? With sharp wit and keen insight, Bonnie J. Morris opens new perspectives on the gender and generation gaps on campus, exploring the negative stereotypes that keep many students from taking women's studies courses. Since 1993, the George Washington University women's history professor has traveled the globe with her one-woman play, Revenge of the Women's Studies Professor, engaging audiences from New Zealand to New York in a frank conversation about the backlash against feminism and women's studies. What year is this published? 2009? Interesting. I wonder what I would more interested than reading it would actually be to ask one of my friends who's an academic to like, because I have a few women who are radfems who are academics, to read it and let me know what they think about it. Anyway, she has some interesting books, and all of them seem like really, like, this is the most popular book she has on Goodreads. This one has 115 ratings. The rest of them have like, literally, this one book has 14 ratings. Like, nobody is reading. She did one, it's called What's the Score? 25 Years of Teaching Women's Sports History. It has 6 ratings. Like, nobody's reading her books. So, Lavender says, plus black gospel singers were changing the words. Castleberry and Dupree did Jesus have a baby sister, and a lot of performers changed the words to make new meanings. Yeah, I figured. Thanks for letting us know, Lavender. It's very interesting to me. Okay. So, for those of you who were at yesterday's reading, which all 4 of you were, I can see from the live chat, I'm not going to start femininity until I finish intercourse, which I don't think will take me that long. I'm like a little over halfway through it. So right now, I'm going to go to the washroom, make myself a tea, have a snack, whatever. And then I'm going to come back and start reading intercourse. Try to finish. I know it sounds funny. The way, as soon as I said it, I was like, what? Maybe I should refer to it exclusively as the book Intercourse or something. Also, just the amount of times that I have said the fuck while reading that book is like astounding to me. Like, it's like a strange thing to contemplate all the things I've said because I'm reading that book out loud. Like, it's really bizarre. Anyway, okay, so I'm gonna like set the stream to start in like 10 minutes. What time is it right now? I'm gonna set the stream to start at 2:15. So okay, let me just do it right now while we're all here so you all can see it. Like I said at the beginning of the stream, if you're like, I know Benji is streaming right now, how do I get there? Just go to my YouTube channel and refresh the page, like the homepage of my YouTube channel, like youtube.com/GNCcentric or whatever it is. Right away. My estimated revenue from the last $2, guys. We're winning. Channel content live. So I set it for tomorrow. We're going to change it to today. Chapter 6, part 2. Set it for today, 2:15. Save. Okay. Okay. Do you see the link? I just sent it. Either way, there's 10 minutes for the link to load on my main channel. Like, I'll just go check right now. You see the link. Okay. So in 10 minutes, I'm going to be reading Intercourse, the book. I'll see you back here in 10 minutes. Okay. Thanks, sisters. Oh, wait, before we go, I wanted to sum up something about the concept of the after reading discussions. I think they're a good idea. I don't want to get bogged down in them. I think this discussion, for example, was good. It was kind of broad strokes overview. I think I'm going to keep doing discussions after every chapter of Dorkin because it's quite like dense. But yesterday's discussion was like less than 20 minutes, right? Like, we just did broad strokes overview. I'm going to try to keep it to that. And if I can't, I'm going to try to do like broad strokes overview discussions like every 3 chapters instead of every chapter, something like that. Okay. Just for those of you who are wondering what was going on. Okay, bye.